Hey, what's up, everybody?
Yo.
Wes, Andy, Hank, as you should already know by now. And if you don't, welcome to the show. It's Fandom Power. We are back once again with our fourth installment of the little show that we like to call The Book of Boba Fandom. This week, there's some important things going on in the...
A returning vessel.
A character, you might almost say. There's lots to talk about that one, that's for sure. So,
mine's on loan for Parker.
Is he going to miss it?
No, but he said as long as I mention his name.
Did you give him a shout out and
say
thank you for the use of? I did it again. I'm going to flip this over here
from the collection. From the collection of.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
From the collection of.
Do you ever feel like last week we had a bit of a preamble on sort of the toxicity and the fan outrage, as it were, that seems to be going on. Still going on, by the way. I have definitely pulled back this week. I wanted to experience less of that because it's still
not as bad on the surface. It was much more pervasive last week than this week. But
sure.
If you do turn any topsoil over, you'll find it again.
It's coming up for you, and it will come up again today.
I'm seeing a lot more of the positive stuff. Like, it's great, we love it, and if you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm like what Wes said. I'm taking a different approach this week and just sort of like laughing at what's funny, ignoring what's hateful for the most. Although this one week somebody was just saying, "Hey guys, don't we hate this more than we hate that?" And I just doesn't hate lead to suffering, like straight up.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of crap we don't need,
But
I was pretty quiet this week, and it was a lot more peaceful. I'll tell you that.
I feel like it's easier if you just kind of take the position of,
I've given up trying to argue with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Anakin kind of said it best, just kind of leave that stuff alone. Because if you don't, it's like,
you fool!
And, or you have an opinion and suddenly you're
dumb.
So I just don't get, where all this outrage comes from. And I mean, as much as I like to poke holes at things and especially theories and stuff. And I like to theorize myself. It's part of what we do here. It's part of the entertainment experience. And I just want to be clear, as passionate as we are, that we do this for the entertainment value. It's entertaining for you guys, but it is immensely entertaining for us. This is a huge part of my week.
Yeah.
And this kind of stuff that happens week in and week out, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes we use the term going down the rabbit hole, and sometimes we go down the rabbit hole so far we miss something obvious.
But other times you go down there and you find something you were looking
for. That's true. And I mean, we were so again, I went down that whole hey, this clone trooper guy who belonged to the Rancor battalion, and
I feel like I dropped the ball the most. I was right on the edge of it, and I was so focused on it. And I feel like I dropped the ball the most, especially considering after the first episode, and I was studying the Djarak table so hard based on the crate, Kratekin, and I was like, I've seen that somewhere, and I've gone through them all in detail, and then my mind was wiped 2 episodes later.
The problem is we'd never seen a Kintan Strider as a skeleton before.
No, it's true. It's very true.
Oh, so I know there's got to be somebody out there who watches our show or listens to our show on the audio version and kind of went, guys, come on, you're better than this.
I hope so. Maybe I would listen to their show then.
So I feel that we owe it for the fan experience to the ones who have been following us from the beginning. The Kintan Strider was first depicted as a hollow chess piece, which later got retconned to become the game that we know as Djarak. That was back in '77. They were the hollow chess pieces, because I'm gonna trip on my tongue every time I try to say Djarak.
Mm-hmm.
Created by our stop motion wizard Phil Tippett, along with John Berg. The original pieces were actually scanned, and then they were recreated as practical effects for The Force Awakens. So, for The Force Awakens and for Solo. So those are actually stop motion in those two films, and they look great.
They look great. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they were digitized for The Rise of Skywalker. So a little, this actually kind of ties in neatly to the whole biker gang thing, is that the Kintan Strider, at least in the old legends, was actually native to the home system of the Nikto, who just happened to hunt them to extinction.
Yeah.
But the species was able to be preserved off-world through breeding programs and domestication.
Well,
there we go. Andy, you talked about the Hutts having a Rancor breeding program.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a Kintan Strider breeding program out there for real.
Well, somewhere there's got to be like,
Yeah.
repopulation efforts.
Welcome to my Tauntaun farm.
There you go. Well, wasn't Queel rocking one of those farms too?
He did, but he was catching and domesticating blurgs.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was breeding them. It seemed like he was out there, because I mean, he was just like, "Hey, I'm going to take the blurgs." You know, Mando's like, "You can have them." So presumably,
he did know a bit about their breeding practices, though.
He did at that. That's so true.
So at some point, he'd have a big enough population to start selling some.
All right, this week's episode, it's called the Gathering Storm. Debuted Wednesday, January 19th in the year 2022. This week's runtime is 49 minutes with credits, or 42 exactly without. Again, there is no post-credit scene. And once again, written by Jon Favreau. This week, it's directed by a gentleman by the name of, and forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, Kevin Tancarowin. So if you're not familiar with that name, or maybe you are, Kevin was the creator and director of the Mortal Kombat Legacy web series.
Neat.
Along with directing 16 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as well as various episodes of The Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, and Titans. So well-versed in the genre, I'd say.
We won't hold S.H.I.E.L.D. against him.
Well, depends which episode it was, right?
No, that's true.
I just gave up.
It's sort of an inside joke here at home.
I totally gave up on it after season 1. It kind of disappeared from the rotation. I don't know if it got moved around.
Yeah.
But it became so hard to keep up with. I'm just like, no, it's okay. Maybe later. And maybe later is still
right.
Later.
Right. Even for free, I haven't returned to it.
Yeah. What do you guys think of just cursory off the top of your head? What do you got for this week's episode? Sort of.
I kind of like this, like internally shutting up the haters almost. Like everything they start to whine about kind of gets addressed.
It does. It happened last week, and it happened again. This week.
Happened again. So I was right on track with that. I mean, big moments in this thing. Big, huge things. Like, I thought occurred to me too. It's like there's a line in the very first episode where he just sort of casually drops the line, and he says, "The dreams are back," and therefore everything that happens in the past is yes the past, but is it absolutely the gospel past, the events as they occurred, or is it like his dreams informing him memories of the past? So. And so it's easy then for me to believe that maybe he doesn't remember how he got out of the Sarlacc pit, and that all he has are flashes from a dream. And maybe it was more involved than what we saw on screen.
We know that, or we surmise basically from the new information that's been presented to us for the show, and we had a talking point on that. How long we thought that he was down the Sarlacc for, and we thought that probably less than 24 hours.
Right. Yeah, I still say that.
I agree with that, and the whole oxygen supply thing. I mean, it was right there in front of the screen for you, everybody. As he, the man had to have been, hypoxic. And I mean, if you've ever seen or have experienced hypoxia yourself, or seen somebody who suffers from it because of oxygen displacement, it's very disorienting, and it can be just this like weird, like, what happened? I don't know what happened.
Yeah, so I think that and shock, and and the fact that he really actually just ever tells us to our faces via Shenik, these are dreams.
Yeah. And
so perhaps there's more to that story. He just is showing the parts that he remembers through a dream.
The highlight reel, as it were.
Can I take a few seconds? I mean, I could bring it up when it happens in the episode, but we're at it now, so let's talk about it now. I want to add a little something. I want to dip into Legends a little bit, and I want to tie that into something we talked about last week, particularly where his dreams, the frog the Vision Quest, the lizard Vision Quest.
The Geico lizard.
Sure. All of these things, again, they're sort of tied into this spiritual journey and this character evolution of Boba's character. And I had said last week that I wondered if maybe that the dreams were, at least the childhood dreams, were setting up something bigger. But how that relates to the Sarlacc, I'm going to touch into Legends about how in Star Wars Legends that the Sarlacc was a telepathic creature. You think there's a chance that maybe that there's some of that still in there? We just haven't, they haven't explicitly told us, and that part of the dreams and part of the Vision Quest was actually fueled by a telepathic little tentacle in there, kind of saying, "Hey."
Maybe
it's possible they might have dropped that though before they killed it again.
Which I agree with you that.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. But I mean, for everybody who's complaining, like, how does he not remember that he climbed out of the Sarlacc wearing it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe he just doesn't. Maybe he doesn't.
No, I think it's probably just sort of inconclusive how he got it, especially if he's dreaming at this, while he's got the lizard up his nose, and it's he's not dreaming necessarily, but hallucinating certainly.
Yeah.
And that sort of gray line between those two things when you're really, really high for whatever it is. Don't do drugs, kids.
That's true.
That, and he's picturing himself fading in and out of the and that's the armor, and it's symbolic of him being in like two states.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this with Lauren. This is such a big, now that we've come full circle and we did that little flashback to sort of like synopsis of how he takes the throne right in the middle of the episode.
Right.
We like, this is Boba Fett died, guys, when he went into that Sarlacc pit in 1983. He absolutely died.
That's right.
And in 2022, he was reborn. And what we saw with the Tusken Raiders is his new origin story.
Yeah, and we get a nice little piece of dialogue this week that actually informs us. Again, it's still kind of vague, but it's like, if you thought that episodes 1, 2, and 3, that those dream sequences were sort of
right on,
in the days and or weeks, guess again, because we now know that he spent a considerable amount of time with them, much more than maybe the show kind of tells us. Of course, it's all off camera, but we get the Cole's Notes version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in that way, then nobody has any legs to stand on to say whatever happened before, even if they knew the guy sitting in a bar, that he was their best friend.
Yeah.
After 5 years of that, such a different life. You're a different, you're a different clone. You're a different human being, or whatever you are. You're different, and so he's different, and he's now
learned.
He's wise, and he's patient, and he's not as bloodthirsty, and he's all these things that like having living in nature, having sort of a spiritual lifestyle is going to alter you dramatically and profoundly.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. One of the several outlets had said this week that the Mandalorian is a better Boba Fett than Boba Fett is. And, that goes right back to the whole, if you take the helmet off, you take away the mystery. This isn't the same character we grew up with. Okay, we've heard it all before. And if I am to agree with that, I will say yes. I agree with that up until he takes his helmet off. And the second that Din Djarin takes his helmet off, you just don't have a leg to stand on anymore. So if you're not in it to see these characters grow and develop, and if they're not growing and developing in the way that you want them to,
then you might as well
write your own show.
Yeah, or just watch Empire over and over and over and over.
Or just put on the 40 seconds of falling into the Sarlacc on a loop, and just remember that's your Boba Fett. There you go. All right, we're just poking at you. We love you all, except for the ones we don't.
But we do love Ming-Na Wen.
We do, yes.
Her presence on social this week, basically echoing what we came up with the throwback to American Graffiti, and
she had a lot of positive things to say. I mean, Tem's words were a little more, kind of curt. Like you can't just say I'm not going to work with these people. Like, and I don't even think you needed to say that, really. I mean, of course you're there to do a job, but it's not about who you're acting with or the script you've been given, although ostensibly it is, because even Mark Hamill, who had gone out and said, hey, this isn't the Luke Skywalker I know, but I'm an actor and I'm here to do a job.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
Yeah. Do the best you can.
All right, you want to get into this? You want to get into the breakdown?
I think so.
All right, here we go. So first of all, the episode begins as we fade into Boba's private quarters. Once again, the would-be crime lord is laying peacefully in the white Bactopod that we've all become so familiar with. Closing in on Boba's face, we can see the familiar twitch of REM sleep. And once again, we're transported back to Tatooine. Saddled atop his bantha, Fett crosses the sands of the Dune Sea once more. As they pass the skeletal remains of a bantha, we are reminded that Tatooine is a merciless world for the weak. Then, having reached his destination, a dismounted Boba creeps forward to crouch down behind a rocky outcropping overlooking the backside of Jabba's palace. It's an angle that we don't very often see, and one thing I will say about this episode is we get there's a few different angles we get that it's like, oh, and so
this place is huge.
It is. It's massive. I'm going to go back to the private quarters thing, Hank, and I'm going to concede that it is part of the main rotunda.
No, yeah, absolutely is.
If it's not part of the main rotunda, then I don't get it, because this week clearly establishes when they're standing on the balcony watching all the Dons drive away that their spires are not directly attached to the main building. None of them are.
No.
And from some angles, I thought maybe they were.
The probe gives us a really good shot of the spiral staircase.
Yeah.
So the disconnect for me was that the trip with the Gamorreans and Black Krrsantan looked shorter than it was.
Yeah.
In fact, that's a long central
painful
spire.
I think that tied back into the dive part where it's like they missed several stairs on the way down.
Yeah.
And kind of hit mid.
Yeah. You really get to see that several stories of spiral in this episode. Yeah.
All right.
Well, we get to see our door where the Rancor fits through.
Yeah, we do. That's true. All right. Down in the valley, far below the domed palace, Gamorrean and Weequay guards patrol the area just outside a massive doorway. Unslinging his cycler rifle, Boba peers down the scope for a better look as a massive steel gate lifts from the desert floor, sealing off the underpalace. Creeping back from the rocky outcropping, Boba walks several feet back to his bantha, telling her, "Not today, old girl. Still too many guards," before leading her off for an evening meal. And as the camera pans up to the twin suns of Tatooine, the daylight transitions to night, and the suns shift to reveal the planet's 3 moons. This is actually kind of a cool thing. I'd forgotten that we've seen these before.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 moons of Tatooine, their first on-screen appearance back in Attack of the Clones as Anakin surveyed the Tusken camp. They are named, now forgive me if I butcher this because my language ability is not that great. We have the moon, and it doesn't tell me which order they're in, but we have the moon of Gomarasan, Guermesa, and Chenini. And this is a new one for me. All of these are named after towns in Tunisia, as is the planet Tatooine itself. So there we go. There's a map of Tunisia, and then we break that down a little further, and we come in basically the Tatooine governorate. And so if you ever wanted to visit Tatooine and the 3 moons, it's only about an hour and 6-minute drive, at least according to Google Maps.
Once you're there.
That's right. Never mind the whole got to get to Africa thing.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Later that night, sitting around a small cooking fire, Boba shares a small animal, likely a scurrier, with his bantha. It's a bit of a heartwarming moment with the bantha wagging its tail, which makes them now more, I guess, pet-like and less beast of burden. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on with that is that officially make banthas omnivores.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a new thing because up until now, they've always been depicted or at least presented as strictly as herbivores. And even in this, the way that they show the thing to be chewing, it's very cow-like.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, is Boba's bantha a cannibal?
Treat.
And you pour it in a storm.
That's right, eh? Suddenly, Boba's attention is drawn to the night sky when flares begin to pop off in the distance. With the musical cue from the Mandalorian theme, we know that these are the flares fired off by Din Djarin and Toro Calican in The Gunfighter.
Yeah, I stood up.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Quickly breaking camp, Boba rides out to investigate the flares, but when he gets there, all he finds is the body of Master Assassin Fennec Shand face down in the sand. Turning her over, Boba discovers that as close to death as she is, Fennec is still alive, so he sets about to secure her to the back of his bantha. Then we cut to our title cards, and we move on.
I got to say, this week I slept on the couch so that I could watch it at 4 a.m. on the big TV instead of my phone.
Yeah, is it 4? It's 4 a.m. for you because of the
4
hour
a.m.
difference.
for me. Yeah, it's a good strategy though. I'm up at 5:30 for work anyway, so it's not that big a hit.
If you're pushing it just one day a week, I suppose you can kind of. I guess it depends on what your work schedule is like.
I sort of plan to go to bed early that night. I really do. Yeah. And 3 weeks in a row, it's happened. So
if we lived on the West Coast, we could take part in some of these midnight watch parties.
Right. Like it's not so ridiculous. Although I'm actually probably less tired at 4 a.m. after having slept 6 or 7 hours than I am at midnight.
Oh no, I hear you.
Yeah.
4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like, is it bedtime yet?
Yeah.
Face down in my coffee.
For me, 7 p.m. I turn into goo, just like a puddle.
All right, with Fennec's body draped behind his saddle, Boba rides toward the dim lights of a settlement. The sky is just beginning to lighten as the first of the twin suns is starting to rise. Outside a low building on the edge of the settlement, several cybernetically enhanced young people loiter as they watch Boba pull up and unload Fennec to carry her inside. Andy, you get a nice one this week. You pulled off quite a few little details for us here.
I didn't dive straight into the entirety of the graffiti, but a couple of them stuck out. So
the whole the modifier. Now, what script is that?
That is Outer Rim Basic.
Outer Rim Basic.
Yeah, nice job.
So it's not just fish bones; it's actually writing on a sign.
Not just fish bones. Funny you say that because the skull on that looks like the creature that the droids pass in A New Hope.
Yeah.
All right, and then we've got what looks to be some essentially gibberish in the Orabesh.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
So I don't know what I'm sure we can figure it out if we got like the other angle of the doorway.
Maybe
but, missing as much as we are, that's what we got.
Yeah. All right, the door slides open and the sounds of electronic music pour out from the interior of the building. This is clearly a cybernetic chop shop, and as Boba carries Fennec inside, a few patrons watch as he enters. In the corner, a young woman sits leaning on the back of a chair while a yellow dreadlocked man performs surgery on her back. Boba places Fennec on a nearby table. I kind of like the atmosphere of this place. Like it just screams tattoo place. Yeah.
And I think that's what this is synonymous with, like the modern tattoo culture and like piercing culture.
Yeah,
that's basically what the idea of these cybernetics are. It's just like
body modification.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess that brings us to our next little piece of language.
Yeah,
from
that
the doorway
really jumped off the wall there.
I don't know if that's a dye or a blood or paint or what that is.
Yeah.
Did somebody have an accident on the way out and smear the wall?
I don't know. It's clear in Orbesh. It's Mod
Bod. That's a very interesting way to present that.
Show up here to mod your bod.
Yeah. So, aware that someone has just entered the building, the surgeon pauses to glance back at Boba, and derisively he says, "Aren't you a little old to be here?" Boba tells the men that Fennec needs modification, but unimpressed, the surgeon tells him, no walk-ins, appointment only. So, reaching into his robes, Boba places a bag of credits on the surgeon's instrument tray and tells him that Fennec is about to die. Looking at the pouch, the surgeon smirks and he replies, "Well, you should have started with that."
Started with the pouch, I thought, eh?
Yeah. Lead with the money.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Money talks, man.
Yeah.
Money talks. First on-screen appearance from this gentleman, that is Steven Thundercat Bruner. His character is credited simply as the mod artist, and if you're not familiar with this gentleman, he was the bassist for Suicidal Tendencies between 2002 and 2011. He also played and produced Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. Currently has 4 solo albums, and the latest one, 2021's It Is What It Is.
Yeah, and this scene, the beat that's playing while they're doing the montage.
Is it one of his bass lines? Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
All right. Turning his attention to Fennec, the mod artist activates a self-cauterizing scalpel and opens up the unconscious woman's midsection. In a surgical montage sequence reminiscent to something that, maybe we'd see in a Rocky movie, the mod artist painstakingly removes Fennec's damaged organs and fits her with mechanical replacements. The
top middle there in that image.
Yeah.
That's the echo we were promised from the action figure leak.
Oh, that does look like it, doesn't it?
Doesn't it look similar?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
The procedure is both garish and fascinating all at the same time, but if nothing else, the mod artist is professional as he tests each component as it goes in. What's the other time we had a surgical montage, Andy?
Probably not since Vader
I
was.
was going to say
Revenge of the Sith,
Vader.
Yeah.
Montage.
Was 3PO's brain wipe a montage and
I don't know.
Rise of Skywalker? I don't remember that movie well.
He just takes one last look at his friends.
Probably
we spent a lot of time this week. One of the things we all kind of riffed on was like, hey, it looks like he's got a battle droid hand.
Yeah.
Well, there's the mod's hand up against both a B1 and a B2 battle droid. It's certainly in the family somewhere. I spent a lot of time on this, more time than I should have.
Me too, yeah. Most of the super battle droids I found mostly had the closed fingers versions of the hand. Yeah. It's in there somewhere for sure.
I was looking at the commando droids and then the what do you call them? The droid generals, the strategy droids. They're all in that same family.
That's right.
Yeah, BX series commando droids or super tactical droids.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I was leaning to, but there just wasn't enough for me to say yes, it is or no, it isn't.
I never looked at K2's hands. I never even thought.
I didn't either. No, I think he's more spindly though.
Yeah.
All right. When the procedure is complete, Boba asks the mod artist if he's going to close Fennec's surgical site, but he just grins and rhetorically says, "And cover all that beautiful machinery." All right. With the sun rising, we've now obviously transitioned to another location now. And with the sun rising, Boba tends to a small campfire while Fennec lays unconscious nearby. Slowly, she begins to awaken and begins to take in the situation. At first, Boba appears blurry to her, but as she clears the fog from her head, he comes into focus. Seeing the master assassin has regained consciousness, Boba cracks back a black melon and he offers it to her, telling her that it will help her recover. Then Fennec notices her midsection and shockingly says, "What did you do to me?" He tells her quite simply that she was dying from being shot in the gut and that he saved her life by taking her to a mod parlor on the outskirts of Mos Eisley, adding, "It was the best I could do under the circumstances." As Fennec drinks from the black melon, Boba announces, "You are Master Assassin Fennec Shand of the Mid-Rim." And Fennec looks over at him and says, "I guess I'm worth more alive." Boba stares long and hard at the woman, telling her, "You are." Thinking she's the prisoner of another bounty hunter, Fennec tries to bargain her way out of the situation by offering to pay double the bounty on her head. But Boba strikes her down, telling her that he doesn't want money. Quizzically, she looks at her captor and asks, "Who are you?" And the man plainly answers, "I am Boba Fett." Fennec dismisses his claim, exclaiming that Boba is dead. But he tells her how he was left for dead, just as she was, and that the Sand People took him in and treated him as one of their own. Painfully, he recounts that even though he tried to help them, all he ended up doing was to get them killed by a Nikto speeder gang. Fennec is surprised at that, and she says that it's highly unlikely. So it's early on, and we've already got a cue from her that there's something afoot here, that the Nikto, the Kintan Striders, may not have done this independently.
Right.
Which we've already suspected anyway.
Yeah.
But Boba pushes the conversation forward, telling her that he wants her to help him recover his ship from Jabba's palace. Fennec points out that after Jabba died, Bib Fortuna took over Jabba's territory and rules from the palace. She adds, "If the ship is yours, why don't you just ask for it back?" And Boba tells her, "Because I might not like the answer. Without my armor, I'm less persuasive."
Know your limits.
Yeah. Now, with the knowledge of who Boba really is and what he wants from her, Fennec realizes that she has some leverage. She looks at him squarely and says, if I help you, then my debt is paid. Boba, knowing that he doesn't really have any more bargaining power, agrees to her terms. All right.
He also says to her at one point, though, with the black melon,
yeah,
you'll grow to like it.
You'll
and eventually you'll crave
you'll
it.
crave it. Yeah, yeah. Take some getting used to, but you'll grow to crave it.
So there's addictive properties within that thing too.
Is it addictive or just? I think it's a. I don't know. Maybe it is an addictive thing.
Yeah,
I don't
crave
know.
It. Just crave it like you crave water after.
Like I want some tang.
Yeah, I'd rather have that than anything else at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Water.
Exactly. Oh, where are we at? There we go. After a long ride across the Dune Sea, Boba and Fennec make it out to the ridge at the back of the palace where he had observed the gate in the previous sequence. This time, Fennec uses her rifle with its significantly more powerful scope to check out the area. A few guards do loiter outside the hangar, while a few more stand just inside the open gate. Along with a few repulsor skiffs, Boba's ship is indeed inside the hangar. All right, and this is what I was able to pull out of her scope this week. We only get really one piece of script that makes sense. Fly. The rest, again, kind of gibberish.
Well, aim,
Oh, aim, yes, I guess so. Aim, fly.
And then maybe
Mar, I don't mark. SRC, I'm not
March.
100% sure. Maybe. And then on the bottom, we get this like RSJ. And then the thing to the left of that is just like an indicator light. It's not even a symbol. And then clearly we can see the skiff. And apparently there's a lot more of them than what we saw in Return of the Jedi. Because there's at least 3 of them there. Those are the Bantha 2 cargo skiff. They've been released several times across the toy line. Haven't got a 6-inch scale one yet, though. It's probably the best we could ever hope for. All right. So Fennec confirms to Boba that the ship is there, and when she asks him if he has any idea how many guards are there, he tells her that he can't tell. Every time the gate opens, some guards come out and others go in. With that, Fennec says, well, let's take a closer look. She slides out the butt plate of her rifle, revealing a small spherical probe. The probe lifts off from Fennec's hand and speeds toward the hangar as the heavy gate begins to lift back into place. All right, so this thing moves pretty fast. And but I just want to touch on this for a second. How many more tricks are in the back end of that rifle?
Wicked.
Swiss Army rifle.
She's got a throwing knife on one side. She's got a slide out.
Probe
awesome.
Droid.
Yeah.
Anybody have any problems with the lights that were on this thing?
I did not.
Oh man,
I didn't. I mean, I just
what the heck is wrong with people?
Suspension of disbelief, guys.
Wow.
I'm totally okay with it.
This one actually, it was one of the few that I went, that's crazy.
Why couldn't it have been in the ultraviolet spectrum? Might have been more effective. Who cares?
With a Romulan cloaking device on it.
Flying past Gamorreans, they're not going to notice.
We get a pretty cool view of the fisheye lens view as the probe speeds in towards the gate. Now, I went through this and I frame by framed it, and I got every letter combination that it displays on the way in. So none of them make any sense except for the middle one, the very first one, which says Ghost. And I thought, well, what a cool little thing. Like it's in ghost mode or something, right? Like don't be found, despite having red lights all over it.
Right.
All right. Flitting through the hangar gate just as it closes, the remote probe begins its survey task. Coming up through a grate in the floor, the probe flies down several corridors, staying out of sight as it encounters various guard personnel. Back on the ridge behind the palace, Boba releases his bantha while Fennec cleans her rifle. It's another tender moment as Master and Beast share one last act of affection, Boba petting the bantha vigorously while it licks his face. And when the Beast walks away, Fennec says, shouldn't you have waited until you get your ship back before you do that? But ever the realist, Boba comes back with, why? Either I get it or I die trying, adding that soon you'll be free too. As she finishes reassembling her rifle, Fennec asks Boba what's next for him. Unsurprisingly, he says he's going to find his armor. But what is surprising is what comes next. Then I'm going to kill that bloated pig who double-crossed me and take his throne. So I guess I missed it on my first watch through. I'm just like, oh sure. I mean, he's just talking about taking over the throne, but then it's like, wait, double cross. When did Bib Fortuna ever double cross Boba? Wow.
Read comics, kids.
The best thing I have from this is that it is most likely a reference to the War of the Bounty Hunters issue #1, in which Han Solo, still encased in carbonite, is stolen by other bounty hunters from Boba Fett. Although Bib Fortuna tells Boba that Jabba placed a bounty on his head for taking too long to deliver Captain Solo, it's implied that Bib, in fact, was the one to put a bounty on Boba to make him look bad in the eyes of Jabba. Hank, you've read that, haven't you?
Yeah, and I was in the middle of rereading a lot of that stuff.
I was going to say, is there any more that you want to add to that?
I mean, not terribly, just that that's probably the source of it. Also, there's a little line that's like, maybe it's just an inside line because he says, talks about him being bloated. So maybe the rumors have gotten around too, that Bib Fortuna he's heard that he's in charge and probably about his girth and other things, and certainly about his lack of control over things. So it probably stems from a few things, but I would think certainly if there's any betrayal, it's probably that moment. There's no love lost between those two characters. Realistically,
no, certainly not.
Yeah. Chances are he's being carried around just like the Hutts.
Yeah.
So
he's doing that whole. He's playing the role, and we know from casual conversation he just doesn't have the straight power to secure the whole, just to step in and rule. So he's got to, play this guy against that guy, and he's a sort of a more smarmy gang boss, if you will, than even Jabba.
That kind of comes up later on during the dinner party, and it ties into what we were talking about last week about. You spend that many years as the major domo to a crime boss, like you say, you got all the security codes, like you've got all of the day-to-day operations side of things kind of down pat. So sure, it made sense for him to
step right in.
Yeah.
Whether he did it well or not. If you guys, if they ever do like an omnibus or something, maybe, or do an animated comic, or I really encourage everybody to check out War of the Bounty Hunter stuff. There's a lot of it bleeds into all the other Star Wars stuff that's going on, like Darth Vader and the regular story and Dr. Aphra, and it's like Star Wars' first Marvel style crossover, where it brings characters from all the issues
from all the Star Wars titles that they're running.
But it's fantastic. It's a great detailed look at what Boba Fett was like before he was raised by the Sand People.
Yeah.
And such cool elements like pit fighting, like Boba Fett pit fighting, spray painting his armor black so nobody will recognize him in pit fighting.
Oh, interesting.
Calling himself Jango and stuff like that. Yeah, just great stuff.
All right. So, and then the last thing here, as we're sitting around the fire, is egregiously Fennec. She says after he says, "I'm going to kill him," she says to him, "You want to head a Gotra?" And so now I'm going to talk about this for a bit because we talked about this offline sort of earlier on this week about exactly what a Gotra is, and we had a little bit of a discussion. So there's a line. I was looking for other Star Wars references to the term Gotra, and we get one. The only one that I can think of is the one we get from The Mandalorian, which I'm just going to
in live action, 100%.
Yeah,
live action, 100%.
Will not die by my hand. Now, where is the Mandalorian you know of?
Tatooine.
What?
The Mando I know of is on Tatooine.
I apologize for being really quiet.
Tatooine, I've never seen a Mandalorian there.
My information is good, I tell you. The city of Mospelgo. I swear it by the Gotra.
Right. So there we go. That's John Leguizamo's character, Gor Koresh, back in The Mandalorian, talking to Din Djarin, where he swears by the Gotra. And so that kind of took me for a little bit of a loop, because the other big reference to Gotra in Star Wars, I don't know, Hank, if you want to touch on this one, the droid Gotra.
Right. So, okay. It's first mentioned in the Tarkin novel.
Yeah.
They're basically, think of like activists, like hippie, like not hippies, like activists, like a violent version of Greenpeace, if you will. They want human rights, and they want free the whales and all these other like things that are great on paper, but the way of going about it is just horrible.
You could almost picture L337 as being part of that.
She would so vote for them or work for them in a heartbeat. But basically, think of them as a droid crime boss family.
Yeah.
And their primary interest is droid rights and freedoms, because they are really realistically slaves. And we could get into it. We could do a whole show on the way droids are portrayed in Star Wars. But they're a real threat. Like, they're a threat to the Empire. They're still a threat to the New Republic. They're one of the major players in the galaxy.
Right.
And they have factions like the Guavian enforcers from the Force Awakens.
The Guavian Death Gang.
Right. They're they're all cybernetic or enhanced beings as well. And so at one point they actually planned to steal all the data in the galaxy.
Oh, that's like we're going to hijack the internet.
All the internet in the galaxy, and therefore they'll use all the information to be able to take down all the other crime families and the fledgling. Right. I believe it's the Empire at the time and stuff.
Sure.
And Dr. Aphra, who I'm really hoping we get a live action version of eventually. She's a great character, and I talk about her a lot. But her two droids, the assassin droid and the torture droid, they were designed for her to transport to the Gotra, and
droid Gotra,
and the 000, who's a really, it's basically a black C-3PO with instead of fingers, he's got murder weapons and stuff. Great kind of crazy twisted character,
like a cook droid.
Carries a program inside him that will, once they get all the data and they release basically him into the internet, I guess, if you will,
the HoloNet or whatever.
Then all protocol droids will become torture droids and turn on their human.
Oh wow!
This is this big plot, and actually Darth Vader, she teams up with Vader and stops it. And the comics are fantastic, fellas. But so the idea is that this is the droid Gotra is what it calls itself. It's the preeminent sort of group of droids that control droid rights, and I bet you the Techno Union organization is probably part of that.
Sure.
But I would say totally based on the research that we both did, and when we found out that it was like a Hindu word or an Indian word.
I've got some of the word origin here.
Yeah, do it.
Gotra in our own in the real world is basically it's a caste system based on a person's lineage segment. This system presumes that everyone is descended from one of 7 mythological ancestors, and it prohibits any marriage between two people who are descended from the same ancestor. The practice of forbidding marriage between members of the same Gotra was intended to keep that Gotra free from inherited blemishes, and also to broaden the influence of a particular Gotra by wider alliances with other powerful lineages. Right. And in that respect, that's where I kind of went, oh, okay, I can see how they've co-opted that to mean crime family.
Right. And so when we're talking about the Gotra, when that guy swears to the Gotra, he's swearing to a specific group of dangerous people to show Din Djarin how serious he is about his information.
It's like when she says swearing to the Don.
Right. And when she says, you want to run a Gotra, that's like colloquial. Like, what do you want to start a gang for? It's the more colloquial version of it. Yeah.
I think there's a bigger discussion to be had about that as well, and I'm going to bring that up a little bit later when they are sitting around the fire in the next sequence, because we get a whole lot more emotional character development here that I want to touch on that takes us back to the Boba Jango connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so where am I at here? There we go. When Boba says, "Why not?" Fennec replies, "You're a hunter." But Boba continues by telling her that he's tired of working for idiots who are going to get him killed. He tells her that when the Tuskens took him in, he was ready to leave hunting behind. Fennec looks at him and says, people like us don't get to decide when we're finished. Just then, the miniature probe droid returns. All right. With the droid recovered, Fennec has it play back its findings. The droid activates a small holo projector and begins to lay out an interior rendering of the entire hangar level, including marked spots where all the guards are. Now, this, I don't know about you guys. This hit me like a brick. To me, it was just obvious. But did you guys remember Prometheus? Last time we talked about Ridley Scott, it was not very favorable. But this week, holy cow, man. I mean, Prometheus, all the way back in 2012, did something very similar to this with the mining probes. They called them pups.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they called them. And it's unmistakable that there's a similar vibe there.
For sure.
Yeah. But it gets even better because as I was looking up the information for pups, I got the original concept art for them, put that up against Fennec's probe and kind of went, oh my. So I could not find a name in the credits to see, if there was a common production designer or artist or VFX person.
That could be shots fired because Ridley was just, talking trash a couple weeks ago for no good reason. He just mentioned it. Yeah. And a lot of people are like, well, wasn't he offered and couldn't do it or something bitter?
Couldn't do it. Yeah. One of the Star Wars
maybe
things.
That perhaps is a subtle shots fired. Yeah.
Maybe. What do we got here? Yeah. Okay. So that was the Prometheus concept. Yeah. That just caught me off guard. I was like, holy cow.
Good eye, sir.
With the realization that the guards number somewhere around 20, Boba says that there are just too many. But that doesn't seem to bother Fennec so much because she says, well, then we'll time their patrol and go in quiet. Now, later on, with their eyes on a nearby sewer grate, Boba and Fennec keep an eye on 2 Gamorrean guards patrolling nearby. When the guards complete their pass and walk back the other way, Fennec and Boba make a dash for the grate. Using a tool, Fennec dissolves 2 of the bars on the top side and is able to kick them in, and the 2 swiftly make their way inside.
Did this tunnel have any Helm's Deep vibes for you?
Oh, as they were going through the sewer?
Yeah. Nice.
I did
run it in with a bomb. We're just going in quiet.
Yeah, I didn't think about that because, as you say, the bomb thing was a lot more. Rest in peace, you noble orc.
That's right.
The camera rises through the floor, and we find ourselves in the kitchen where an EV series droid stirs a pot, and a COO cook droid chops vegetables at a nearby table. A one-eyed Sorghum Frog tries to climb out of the pot, but the EV droid knocks it back in with a spoon. You guys remember the planet Sorghum? We saw Sorghum for the first time. It was the planet that Mando... this was the Seven Samurai episode where they fought the gang off with the AT-ST.
Yeah.
The Sorghum Frog is actually the native species to that planet. We saw Grogu try to eat one, and when the kids started laughing at him, that's when he spit it back out. Cool little nod though to the toy line. The Sorghum Frog did not actually get a name until the Black Series named it as one of Grogu's accessories.
Nice.
So Sorghum Frog. All right. The cook droid, it's a COO series cook droid. We first saw that guy back in Attack of the Clones, and he was like flipping pancakes and basically doing the no droids as he told R2 to take a hike. That was on the civilian ship when they were traveling incognito back to Naboo.
Pulling a little General Grievous with his
yes.
General Clevis.
General Clevis. The other one we have here, it's EV-9D9. And of course, EV-99, you will remember as the former gang boss of Jabba's droid pool. Later on, he will go on to become a server at the cantina in Mos Eisley.
Isn't he voiced by Mark Hamill in that episode?
In that episode, he is voiced by Mark Hamill.
Yeah,
now,
I'm wondering if that's...
I went back and I watched it. And, is it the same droid? Is it not the same droid? Because the droid in this episode sounds very much like Richard Marquand, who was the original voice of Richard Marquand, David Marquand, the actor who played the original droid.
Right.
Definitely had that voice. The funny thing is, though, that, I mean, it was confirmed back when The Mandalorian came out that was EV-99.
Right.
So now you have this like, wait, but this guy sounds like the original EV-99. So...
I'd have to go back and listen to Mark Hamill's performance, and I never did, but I was just wondering He's a pretty good impressionist as well, too. So
it's a little different, but you know what? If they told me it is, I'd buy it. That okay, right now, because again, this is in Boba's past, so we're talking 4 or 5 years, maybe more,
right,
between the time that we're at right now and the time, because he's just getting Slave One back. Doesn't have his armor yet.
True.
So we're still in that dreamscape past,
but we are past the point of the gunslinger.
In the present, we are.
Yeah. Well, no.
Oh, sorry. We're there right now, aren't we?
Right there now.
We're 5 years after Return of the Jedi here.
No, you're right.
So,
wow, I gaffed on that one. That's an interesting one then. So I guess we're looking at 2 different droids.
Well, it's possible he bought like a batch of them.
You wouldn't name them all the same name.
I'd have to check the credits.
His Jabba, he doesn't care about his droids.
I guess
He
not.
smashes them up. You know that.
Yeah.
Screen Crush called him. I was watching a Screen Crush.
Sous chef
called him a different name, and I thought he was just making a mistake.
The credit for the droid is sous chef. If you're, it's not even a credit. It's the descriptor in the subtitles. Yeah, they definitely refer to him as a sous chef, and I think the other one is just referred to as cook droid. Yeah. Okay.
We just did 15 minutes on a cook droid.
Well, we wondered what was cooking down in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Last episode.
We did, actually.
All right. So in the pantry, a pair of gloved hands lift a floor grate off and slide it to the side. At the sound of the metal scraping, both droids freeze. The cook droid says to the EV droid, "What was that?" And he answers, "I don't know. Maybe more rats." Going back to chopping vegetables, the cook droid instructs the EV droid to go and find it while he contacts the rat catcher. Walking into the pantry, the droid notices that the open floor grate and says, "I don't think it's rats." Then instructs the cook droid to alert security. But just as he's doing that, Boba rushes out from an antechamber, knocking him out with his gaffy stick. Seeing the intruder, the cook droid steps out from behind its workstation and begins spinning all 6 of its cleaver-wielding arms in a deadly windmill.
It's hilarious.
Very General Grievous-like. Unaware that Fennec has crept up behind him and using the same tool that she used on the sewer grate, she slices the back of the droid's neck. One by one, the droid arms slow to a stop, and finally the head falls off, landing neatly on a bed of leafy greens that it had just chopped. Oh, I love that. Oh,
I got Raiders of the Lost Arks vibes. You know, where the guy's like flipping the swords around and then just Indy just kind of bang. Just one of those, like, this is how easy this is. Show off.
And she just kind of like, she's like literally like she was, were you crouched behind that table the whole time, woman?
Super casual.
Hello. All right. I actually found this part quite fun. Satisfied that the alarm has not been raised, Boba and Fennec depart for the hangar, only to stop short when they hear a little whistling noise from down the hall. And it's like literally like a tune, like a ducking back into the kitchen on either side of the door. Boba and Fennec see an LEP service droid armed with a net walking into the room. As the rat catcher surveys the room looking for its quarry, Fennec and Boba step out from their hiding spots. And when Boba misses it with a swing from his gaffy, the droid makes a run for it. All right, the LEP droid, there's LEP droids that go as far back as 2008, all the way back to the original Clone Wars animated film.
100.
Of course, we see them several more times over the course of the Clone Wars series, but if you follow the rabbit hole, and that is every pun intended, not only do you have a droid, LEP, I mean, we know the French word for rabbit is lapin, so I mean, there's that aspect, but it has now been retconned into canon that the LEP droids are manufactured by a company called Cochelle Automata, a droid company that just happens to be run by the Leppy species.
Right, exactly. Wicked.
Oh, Jackson, gotta love you.
Jackson.
All right. As the little service droid takes off, Boba gives chase while Fennec watches the door. The sequence is pretty chaotic as the little droid runs, leaps, and crawls its way all around the kitchen, all the while avoiding gaffy strikes from Boba. After crawling through the stone oven, the little droid tries to make a dash for the door, but its escape is blocked by Fennec. With nowhere to run, Boba is finally able to grab a hold of the rat catcher, and he pins it up against a wall by its neck. asking the droid, "Do you know who I am?" The rat catcher shakes its head no, and he says, "I am Boba Fett." At that, the service droid opens a panel in its chest and promptly shuts itself down. I'm sorry, I can't stop. I mean,
Nope.
I know that it's a bit of melodrama there. Like, asking a droid, "Do you know who I am?" And then he's like, "No." And then he just tells him who he is. And the droid is like, "Oh, crap." the droid equivalent of poopy your pants.
It's so much more like the droids act in the animated series.
It is. It's very much like that. Yeah.
So it didn't, it felt real normal to me. It was great.
I thought it was great. I thought the translation on this thing from live action to from animation to live action, that was great. I very much like it, and the fact that we see that little guy again at the end of the episode, so we know that he's made it through and he's adjusted to life in the palace with his new master.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Dropping the LEP droid into a barrel, Boba and Fennec make their way to the hangar. Rounding a corner, the two step into a long vaulted room, and there in front of them is Boba's ship. Now, I made a point of just kind of trying to capture the look of him as he's standing there staring. Like, just take a look at the man's face there, and like, what is going through his head right now?
Chewie, we're home.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Something that much? I get this big, like,
there's a familial connection to it for him,
right? Yeah. That's exactly it. It's between, given where I think that the emotional connection is, like we talked about the dream sequence and the connection that he has to his father. I mean, this is one of two things that he's got left of his father. Like, this has to mean something like it's super important to him.
Also so linked to his identity, really.
Well, this is it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to talk about the name thing?
Yeah, we might as well.
What are we going to do? Where are we going? Where are we on this? What is it?
Originally, it was the Slave One.
Sure.
I say it's still the Slave One, and I
do as well.
I don't think it's been changed anywhere except for on Lego boxes. And
future toys, maybe.
Maybe future toys.
Jesus, did I just break that?
Oh, geez. Just the fact that he's referring to it by its class is exactly, Luke doesn't call his X-Wing princess. Certainly, at least not after he finds out she's his sister. And because we named the Falcon, the Falcon is like the Lady Luck, they're characters.
That's right.
Even the Razor Crest, which is a character itself, is the class of the ship.
Yes,
so it's a naming convention. And like you said, in the military, they don't necessarily refer, maybe the people that serve on board the ship refer to that ship together that way, but it's always like, like its the designation its number. Like,
the big one I saw this week was, and this is again from a balanced perspective. You don't say we're going to take, let's say I name my car, Mabel. We don't say we're going to take Mabel. We're going to say we take my car.
Right. Or, you might tell your wife we're going to take Mabel, but you don't tell somebody online, I'm just going to hop on. Is Mabel your horse? You name a horse. So I don't think it's as big a deal. I think people are picking an old thing to trigger them because it's been changed on Lego boxes for almost a year.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing I think is like when there was an accident, a misprint or a misquote, or maybe somebody didn't like the name back then. 2015 Star Wars Encyclopedia. Twice it was misnamed Clone One.
Clone One.
And that's awesome. So if we want to change it, that's an awesome name. But I don't think.
I think it comes down to the same. It's the corporate culture around the Disney company, and just it's the same thing that they did with Slave Leia.
Right, Fire Spray Leia.
We don't call her Slave Leia anymore. I think she was officially changed to Hut Slayer or whatever it is. But they want to get rid of that connotation and association.
That's what slavery. The Hutts call her in the Aftermath novels. Actually,
they do.
She's referred to by the Hutts as the Hut Slayer.
Hut Slayer. That's pretty cool. And that's fine. We accept that Slave One is a Fire Spray 31 patrol vessel. We've known that for a long time when it was introduced that way to us back in the Star Wars Bounty Hunter video game. But as we were hashing it out this week, the fact remains that we do have an on-screen canonical reference to the name Slave One. And I think we could play that, and we can put this one to rest. I think. Here you go.
I hate to agree with Castus, but there's a better way to do this.
But Aura.
Bosk, fire up Slave One. We're going to blast what's left of the ship.
And there you have it. So that's the Clone Wars season 2, episode 21, R2 Come Home. And we've referenced that episode several times, and we're going to talk even more about that episode today. But that's Aura Singh communicating with Bounty Hunter Bosk, informing him that they're leaving and fire up Slave One. So, I mean, that is an in-canon, on-screen mention.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you want to call it Slave One, it's Slave One. If they never referred to it by the name Slave One and they just keep saying my ship, my ship, my ship, the reality is that any time that they ever refer to any starship, there's always context, and I, as the viewer, have never been confused as to what they were talking about. Ever.
Never, not once.
Do you know what I mean? So if they never use the word Slave One ever again, if they never say fire spray gunship ever again, it's fine.
Right.
Both are correct terms. It is the context with which they are being used.
Perhaps we should be more disturbed by the rumors that when Mando shows up, he's going to be in an N1,
in an N1
starfighter.
Yes. Listen, I love the N1. I think it's a beautiful design.
For me, that's cool because I think he needs a droid to pilot that thing, doesn't he?
Well,
that could be cool.
Does Mando? Is he a droid wielding? Like, does he need a sidekick? I mean, Grogu was his sidekick, right? Like,
I don't know.
If you took the droid socket out and you put a dome on it, and suddenly it was a back seat, that seems more plausible to me.
It's probably something that was just thrown out there to trigger people, because there's a few other rumors.
Very well could be. I mean, we've got other Mandalorian things that are going to come up later on in the episode. But yes, Mando is on his way. We know that's happening. Is he going to turn up in a starship? Yes. Would it make more sense? And this is sort of what I was thinking was, given what's happening right now over on his corner of the galaxy, where he's now in possession of the Darksaber, he cannot just give it to Bo-Katan. Bo is very much focused on the liberation of Mandalore. I don't think it's completely out of place that she would maybe loan him her fighter, which is a bit more meaty. It's a little bigger. I can't think of the class, the thing with the big wings on it.
Yeah.
But it's a much larger ship, and that just sort of fits with that whole bounty hunter, I need cargo space that an N1 just doesn't do for you.
Yeah, but at the same time, with that Darksaber, he's now a leader, right? So let me get your ship.
I hear you on that one. I think that the Darksaber thing,
it's going to play out at some point.
I don't think it'll play out in this show.
No.
I think that needs its own room to breathe.
If you see him, I think he'll wield it. I don't think they'll explain it, and I think that you'll get just like we got the explanation for what happened to Fennec Shand in this series. Yeah. I think you'll get the current event, and we'll get a big show, and then I think you'll watch.
We'll get the backstory in season 3 of The Mandalorian,
right? Because this is clearly being written like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah,
I had a similar line of thought as well. The only difference is, I thought that there's every chance that he will show up and we'll be like, "Where's the Darksaber?" That we won't see it at all.
It could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised either way. In fact, if he shows up with an entire army of Mandalorians, I'll cheer from the rafters. And if he shows up, half naked, I'll be less enthusiastic. But I mean, let's go.
That's right. Do we need to spend any more time on the Slave One thing? Did you want me to go through I actually went through the maritime tradition of changing a name on a ship. About how much like bad voodoo there is on changing a ship's name.
Yeah.
Like there is this whole maritime superstition that changing a ship's name is just it's bad luck.
You need 10 Roman gladiators and the ghost of Steve McQueen to do it. So
the short version is you must remove all traces of the current name from everywhere on the ship. So anywhere, which means if you've got it on a nameplate somewhere underneath the dashboard, like every trace of the name from every place of the ship. Then you must perform a purging ceremony. Then you must do a renaming ceremony. Then you must say a big prayer to appease the 4 wind gods. And then you must have a toast to complete the honor of the ceremony. So yeah, it's a big deal. And because, as we've said before, Star Wars being derivative of so many other things, and we like to impose sort of those, we like to cherry pick which real world things are allowed to influence our Star Wars. But like, you can't deny that the real world does influence the show and the films. And yeah, I just don't think,
if they're going with the maritime convention, every ship needs a name.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you dig deep far enough, like you'll find a name for every Star Destroyer.
Absolutely. There's probably a naming plaque. I mean, I know Star Trek makes a big deal. It's right on outside the turbo lift on the bridge of every ship.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something similar in Star Wars, whether it's,
at the same time, you don't need it unless you really, really need to go find it.
The other thing is, most, except for the Falcon and even the classes of the ships, I don't even think they were called X-Wings in A New Hope. Originally, it was just lock S-foils in attack position.
Yeah.
We didn't get the names for these things until we got toys.
Yeah.
Or trading cards or comics. Like, nobody knew what a twin pod cloud car was. Right?
No, and I mean, you really
half the characters, we didn't even know their names. We didn't know Pondo Baba was Pondo Baba till like nearly the 90s.
That's right. I mean, up until then, he was Walrus Man, and he had flippers for hands.
So
what's the other guy? Snaggletooth.
Yeah.
When they have no legs to stand on, I can't really even walk in the same room with these people.
It makes it very difficult to have, as I said last week, as a balanced fan, it makes it very difficult to have an informed conversation with somebody, because you're getting yelled at about how your thing is invalid while their thing is the only thing that could possibly exist, because, well, your thing is just silly.
Yeah.
Which is really, it's a good indicator, like, time to pull back. Like,
this is somebody else's intellectual property.
That's right. Oh my Lord. Okay. At the sound of approaching feet, Boba and Fennec split up and hide. 2 Gamorrean guards come running into the hangar, and they start looking for the intruders. Boba drops one with his gaffy stick, while Fennec takes out the second with a series of unarmed blows. Given how tough the Gamorreans have been portrayed in the Mandoverse, this is really consistent for Fennec, because remember we talked about how easily she took out Wrecker?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, man. She's dope and keeps getting doper, actually.
Those Master assassin for a reason.
Those 2 Gamorreans turned the tide of the fight with the assassins in the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gamorreans, I mean, back in the Mandalorian, they were that
gladiator,
underground pit fight, right?
Yeah,
like
fighters.
We're seeing Gamorreans. Okay, Gamorrean guard. They didn't guard anything. They were just kind of bloated, overweight guys that stood around and just squealed. But the Mandoverse has shown us that they are quite formidable. So for her to with a 1, 2, 3, you're out. Oh, that's really impressive.
Yeah, a lot of the comics show you that a lot of these bounty hunters often pit fight for quick money.
Yeah.
Just to prove their mettle and quick money. So it's nothing for a bounty hunter to step in a ring for a couple of rounds just to grab some quick cash, see who the competition is, and then dart out.
All right, time to go. All right, but it's only good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, like every other species we've run into now, like expanding so much on the Tusken lore and a wider window into them, we're getting the same thing with the Gamorreans.
Yeah, to a lesser degree.
It's not just some knockoff bad piggy.
Yeah.
No, there's more to them. There's more to their civilization.
I'm less likely to eat them now.
We only ever see them in pairs, so it's like they just keep redressing the same 2 actors. Here, put some armor on your suit now. No, take that piece off. No, put this one on. Put a helmet on.
Give that guy a pillow. He needs to be fatter.
That's right. Excuse me. All right. Taking a moment to appraise each other's handiwork, Boba and Fennec are quickly set upon by several Weequay guards. who burst into the hangar while indiscriminately firing their blasters to force them into cover. Once the guards fan out, they take up their own cover. One of the weakways takes aim at the barrel shielding Fennec, revealing his position in the process, and she expertly dispatches him with her rifle. Shouting to Boba for him to press on, she says, "I'll handle them." While Fennec continues to bullseye guards, Boba dashes up Slave One's boarding ramp, narrowly dodging the incoming blaster fire. But they're not even close to being out of the woods yet, as more guards begin to pour into the hangar and press the assault. As the newly arrived guards push forward, closing in on Fennec, Boba climbs through several decks of Slave One, finally reaching the cockpit. And while the firefight rages outside of the ship, he goes through the startup sequence while various panels begin to cycle up. With the guards nearly on top of her position, Fennec takes aim at the power droid walking across the hangar.
A double gonky.
A double gonky. Practical, too. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shooting it, the droid goes up in a spectacular explosion, taking out several of the guards with it. This is an interesting sequence because, like we just said before, according to the concept art, the original flight orientation for Slave One was meant to be sort of in the downward position, the clothes iron position, as it sometimes is called. So the fact that when they changed it to the face up position, that they kept all of that interior, the way that they rotated it. And so now not only does he have to climb through like essentially on walls and not floors, now he's got to flip himself into a seat that's laying on its back.
What was so wicked about that is the Kenner toy was, had that seat that moved with gravity.
It could fold down, yeah.
And the ailerons would flip with gravity too. And then they used that in the season 2 of Mando when they were
inside
free in the
ship.
back of it, and they had to like brace themselves because that
as it's rotating
gyroscope was flipping around. It was just dope. Yeah,
I think that you're not alone. There's a bunch of us that kind of went, "Oh, that's so cool that we got to see it." We get a smaller version of that in this episode when they lift out of off the desert, and you can see them rotating back down into proper position. But interesting what comes out of a simple mistake, as in like, no, you've misinterpreted my concept art.
The concept art does differ for this scene.
It does.
It shows Boba basically ripping a drop cloth.
Tarp.
Yeah. The concept art for Slave One actually showed up later on in the West End Games role-playing game as the Phoenix pinnace light freighter, and it actually flew in the iron position. Looks the same, but it's more bulbous. Yeah, so that stuff found life in another source. Where we are here. Thought I had my slides all laid out so I wouldn't lose them, but there it is. As the newly arrived did I just read all that? I did.
Yeah, we're down
explosion. Here. There we go. Next one. There we go. Having leveled several guards in the explosion, Fennec gives up her position and deftly takes down 3 more guards with her rifle. Meanwhile, Boba has now completed Slave One's startup sequence, and the ship's engines rumble to life, and it lifts off from the hangar floor. Just then, another wave of weakway reinforcements arrive, and they charge Fennec and the now hovering Slave One. As Boba throttles the engines to attempt to maneuver, Fennec rolls out of the way of the jet wash, and the weakway guards take the full brunt of it, and they all get knocked over. Leaping onto the open boarding ramp, Fennec shouts to Boba, "Let's get out of here," as she crouches down using the ship's hull for cover. From the boarding ramp, Fennec continues to snipe guards while Boba tries to maneuver the ship. But between the tight confines of the hangar and the rotated position of Slave One's cockpit, the task is not easy, and Boba topples one of the repulsor skiffs in the process. Yeah. Oops.
Kind of like Arnold driving that Harrier jet.
He yells at her. He's like, "I can't see a thing."
That's what it reminded me of, that scene from
True Lies. Yeah. The impact is enough to knock Fennec flat, and she yells at Boba, "What the hell are you doing?" And he shouts back, "We need to get the gate open, but I can't see a thing." Well, Fennec responds that she's a little busy, as one of the Gamorreans has now regained consciousness and is charging up the ramp at her. Fennec gets back to her feet, barely in time to meet the guard, and the Gamorrean bats her rifle out of her hands, but it lands on the deck behind her. But this is Fennec Shand, Master Assassin after all, and once again, she fends off her assailant barehanded.
Serving up some roasted pork.
Sending him over the edge and into the jet wash below. Inside the cockpit, Boba struggles with the control yoke as a collision warning sounds. Now, trying to rotate the ship, he drags the tail section into the curved ceiling, knocking loose several large chunks of concrete. He yells out to Fennec that the guns are jammed and he can't get a shot at the hangar gate. Just then, another Weequay enters the hangar from an overhead gantry-way and is able to jump onto the boarding ramp, and he engages with Fennec. Now, as Fennec fights off the guard, she spots the counterweight holding the gate shut, hanging on a thick chain. She yells up to Boba to close the ramp. Now, with the boarding ramp slowly lifting into place, Fennec has to make her move. Grabbing the guard around the neck, she flips him down the ramp, and his momentum carries him right over the edge. With just seconds before the ramp closes, she takes up her rifle and once again displays her immaculate marksmanship by shooting the chain holding the counterweight. The steel block falls to the ground and the gate drops wide open.
So maybe Jabba should have spent less money on all these skiffs and maybe more on power doors. Then he'd still have a Rancor.
Maybe. Can you some dude on the side?
You need a Rancor to open that thing.
Yeah, really.
Because that thing drops pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. As soon as she cuts the chain.
Yeah.
Interesting though that we don't often see doors coming up from the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're
that
usually
was
falling
cool.
back down.
But I mean, gravity did its thing and open it was. Yeah.
Maybe the Bomars didn't have a lot of tech, beyond putting brains in jars kind of thing.
Maybe there's a big brain in a jar that runs a crank.
Old tech. A hamster
maybe
brain.
they had no use for doors.
Giant hamster brain.
There's a mod kid with a computer jacked into the door.
Yep.
Right.
It's for you guys. That's for you haters.
Moped powered.
That's right. It's Vespa powered. All right. With the gate wide open, Boba is able to maneuver the ship finally outside of the hangar. Clearing the entryway, he rotates the cockpit into flight position and flies away into the early morning sky. As the ship pulls away from the palace and out into the desert, open desert, Fennec makes her way into the cockpit herself, strapping herself into the seat beside Boba. Ironically, it's the seat that he would sit in many times as a child when he would fly away with his father. Angrily, she says, "Next time, we stick to the plan." Boba rhetorically remarks, "Next time?" Fennec and then Fennec asks about the condition of the ship, and he tells her that it's in pretty good shape. Now, I want to talk about this because this could come up in future seasons or other tie-in shows. If you are Bib Fortuna and you've got Slave One parked in your garage, do you go out and use it? And do you do things in the name of Boba Fett because that's more likely to get the result you want than saying, "I'm Bib Fortuna and you're going to do this"?
I'm going to say no, just because Fennec says you're dead.
Sure.
So she is of the belief Boba was dead, and Bib was probably riding that too.
I think it probably took a while for that to get around, though.
Well, even like, hey, look, I got the ship of the mighty Boba Fett. Fear me.
Well, this is what I mean. Like, do you tell everybody that, hey, I killed him and I've got his ship and it's a trophy? It's my new yacht.
Maybe.
Or early on, do you go like, my boss is dead. I'm taking over the family business and I've got the most feared bounty hunter ship parked in my garage. What can I get away with?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you might consider flipping it to the highest bidder, but it might be one of those things just to keep the idea of like that he's dead and that he's no longer a threat in your pocket, maybe.
Sure. I just thought it was an interesting thought that maybe, he was, that they talk about how he wasn't a great leader. And that just seemed like, given how sort of weaselly that character is, that he might try something like that. Whether he did or not remains to be seen, but it's just a fun sort of little like, I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So Fennec tells Boba that there's good mechanics in Mos Eisley. Of course, we know one of them at this point. But Boba insists that he will do the maintenance himself, adding that there's an advantage to people thinking you're dead. Now, free of her debt, Boba asks Fennec, where would you like to be dropped off? And instead of blurting out a destination, she asks him, Where are you headed? When he tells her that he has a few scores to settle, she shifts her gaze forward at the viewport and she says, I'll go along for the ride. All right.
And that's how friendship is born.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna bring it up again this week, but just keep in the back of your mind that I have already asked the question, is there more going on between the two of them?
Maybe.
I'm gonna ask it again. Until they tell me no, I'm gonna keep asking that question. Okay. So go ahead, Andy.
Did you cheer here?
This
is like a Falcor.
Who didn't? This is the stand up, get out of your couch and scream at your TV like a rabid sports fan moment.
Falcor going down on the bullies.
It really was. Out on the Dune Sea, the Kintan Striders speed across the sand, unaware that they are being stalked by Tatooine's newest bird of prey. Slowly, the Slave One comes into focus, and the chin guns erupt in a gout of blaster fire. One by one, Boba destroys each speeder until only the lead one remains. Was that Emmett?
Maybe.
I've gone to Emmett's Fix-It shop to fix Emmett's.
Emmett's regretting putting his name on his jacket right about now. Oh, crap, he can read it.
Switch jackets, quick, switch jackets.
Taking aim at the leader, the ship's missile bays open, and Boba fires a single missile. And with the destruction of the last speeder bike, Boba looks at Fennec, and she understandingly just nods at him like,
yep.
Yeah. Score settled.
Guns are unjammed.
All right. And the next one, this is the one I was laughing at. I said this to you, Hank, earlier today, and I guess for the viewing audience, you guys don't really know this, but I label all my slides because I need a way to keep track of them so I know when to put them up and stuff. And so most of the time, it's like named after a line of dialogue or a sequence that we see on film. But sometimes they can be these little like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, jokey things that only I'm privy to because I'm looking at it. But in the next sequence, this is the one I like to refer to as the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgebber.
That might be a more Canadian reference than normal, but still good one.
So good. I wanted to rewrite the whole song.
I saw that and I thought, do I have time to put music to that and do it? If I could find a karaoke version of that song, we could have done it on the show. Returning to the pit of Carcoon, Boba passes over the skeletal remains of Jabba's sail barge, the Kitana. Remarkable that there's actually that much of it left.
Mm-hmm.
So all you there's wood in the desert people, did you see that? Did you see how much wreckage is out there? That's called salvage. All right. Swinging around and coming in low, Boba rotates the ship face down into the pit. Never really seen a starship kind of take this sort of orientation before. Like if you took the Millennium Falcon and stood it up on its nose, it would look kind of weird. And it does look kind of weird here. He explains to Fennec that the Sarlacc is where he was trapped all those years ago, and that's where he'll find his armor. Fennec questions, in there? Adding that it's dissolved. But Boba corrects her when he says, not Beskar.
Nope.
And that right there, folks, settles an age-old debate. Because all you expanded universe folks, which I include myself, there was that whole argument that Boba's armor was never Beskar, that it was, Durasteel or some kind of alloy or whatever. Okay, case closed. Beskar. All right. Oh, also, years with the Tuskens, right? So now that's that whole like, oh, wow, it was a lot longer than what we were observed.
At least 3 to 4.
Okay. I don't want to go spend too much time on this because we spent a whole lot of time talking about it already, but I'm going to bring it up again. The Clone Wars Season 2, Episode 21, R2 Come Home, the case of the helmet bomb. I had sort of said earlier on in one of our previous shows that I believed that it may have been a proxy. And I'm going to double down on that and say that I still believe that it is a proxy. Based on what Boba had just said, that his armor is in fact Beskar. And I say that because if a Beskar spear can survive an orbital bombardment without so much as a scratch, I don't believe that a Beskar helmet would be blown in half by an explosive designed to kill a single person.
Well, on top of that, the emotional attachment he shows to the
Well,
ship.
again, this is
You think
it.
he's going to throw that away on a helmet?
This is kind of where I was at before too, with this whole like, man, the emotional connection between him and his father, and it has been an emotional journey, and there isn't a whole lot left. What do you do? Like,
you hold on to the pieces you have left.
If the Mandalorian and this show has told us anything, it's how important that these things are, this connection to his father, the whole chain code thing. Like I don't know if you remember Timura's performance in that sequence, but he's like, here, look, this is my chain code. And this is like, he's proving the provenance of why it's his. And he's so passionate about it.
Yeah.
It just carries over that, of course, that's important to him.
Well, it's just like Din Djarin picking up the little knob out of the wreckage.
Well, exactly. The argument was made. I'd seen it online about how yeah, no, that helmet was destroyed. It's the same helmet. It can't be the same helmet. I'm like, well, no, it absolutely could be the same helmet, because if it's that important to him now. And then someone said, well, why would it be important to him as a kid, that as a kid he wouldn't appreciate the value of it? Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he?
Because it's not like he was just sitting there. He was learning.
Well, he was raised from birth by a Mandalorian. Like,
yeah,
there's a reason he doesn't go to his father's head. I don't even know if we've ever talked about that before, but that scene is really powerful. He doesn't go to his father's head or his father's body.
No.
Okay. He goes to the helmet. He touches his forehead to the helmet. Yeah. He doesn't cradle his body. Like, so the helmet is his father.
It's the identity of,
right.
Picks up his father's legacy.
And so I think
George Lucas even said that Jango and Boba are effectively meant to be the same character. They're meant to be the same person.
Exactly.
I'm
not a bounty hunter, and I wasn't raised by Jango Fett. And right over there, I'm making a cardboard Boba Fett helmet. And if I can do that, a kid can make a Durasteel proxy and paint it up to look like something.
Absolutely,
just a trick. He planned the plot. He got the, you know what I mean?
That's right.
He had the explosives to put in it. Like, making the helmet is the short stretch.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Mace identifies it. I mean, in that sequence where he's like, "Oh, it belonged to a bounty hunter that I killed on Geonosis." By the way, I highly recommend that you go back and revisit this episode, because the dialogue sequence between Mace Windu and Anakin is just like, you really get the sense of like how moved that Mace Windu is. He's like, he watched as I killed his father, and Mace does not sound too happy about it either. Like, he's emotionally affected by it. I want to talk about this, the animatic sequence again, because that comes up all the time about the helmet dent.
The dent
and,
from
the Cad Bane duel, the animatic that never got released as part of an episode. So I just want to point out, going back as far as that episode in the Clone Wars, or even Attack of the Clones for that matter, the helmet dent was always there.
Mm-hmm.
It was already there. So we see it in Attack of the Clones. That is Jango Fett as he's facing down. Presently, I don't know if that's when Mace is charging him down, or if that's the Reek is charging at him at that one.
Could be. I think that's him leaping off the gantry.
That is the scene from the arena. Yeah. And then, of course, you see the helmet bomb there itself. They both have the dent in it. And then we get to that animatic where suddenly there's no dent. We get the blaster shot, and then several. I've got the Empire Strikes Back. There's a shot of Cobb Vanth, and then the re-armored Boba.
And it's a little bit like the red spot on Jupiter. It kind of moves around a bit.
Well, there it is, right? And so here, but this is the ridiculousness of the whole thing, right? It's the whole idea of, well, it's not that the dent's not in the same place. And it's like, you do understand that this is a movie prop, and that the movie prop from Attack of the Clones is probably sitting on some dude's desk somewhere, and we've had to remake the prop. So it's an approximation, right?
Yeah. Oh, we got a comment.
We do. We've got a comment this week coming in here. Facebook user says, did Jango Fett have the same aspirations as the Emperor to live forever through cloning? Well, that's an interesting question, and I don't really know what the answer is to that. What do we know about Jango? All he asked for in return for being the template to the clone army was an unaltered clone, which we take for granted that he raised as his own son, at least to the age of what, 10? 10-ish?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least.
Do you think that was Jango's way of getting out of the game by, raising a son and maybe retiring from bounty hunting, but just, that one last job to set me up forever?
I wouldn't say he had machinations as deep as the Emperor, but I would say that it was effectively a way to double his lifespan.
I guess so, yeah, maybe.
Have the Fett name known for longer after the fact.
And perhaps if he had got him to adulthood and then like he would have, like the mantle, like Batman, perhaps he would have been Jango Fett.
Maybe.
Proper.
Maybe.
Again.
Yeah. Just
it seems
assumed
like
his
that's
father's name.
That's kind of more in line with his personality than like an army of Jangos or at least like an eternal life. I think it was just like, and perhaps he could keep the ball rolling some fashion, but I think it was long-term, short-term thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does.
Quick way to get a kid.
But it certainly ties into the emotional journey that Boba's gone in right now, where it's like, for a while there, I just assumed that, Boba was just sort of, the legacy line. I'm just a simple man making my way in the galaxy. Like the whole cyclical nature. It's like, oh, so Boba really is the living prophecy, right? And then now it's like, well, wait a minute. We're going to talk about it here shortly because it's coming up right next. Is they're going to have this big conversation, this big, deep conversation about setting up the house again and
the whys.
Right. And he goes into like the whole notion of like tired of working for people who are going to get us killed. Like suddenly he's breaking the mold and breaking away from that.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty stark contrast to, is all the sort of, at least I perceive it as this affectation towards his father, but maybe it's just not in the healthiest way. Right. All right. So we move on then. Hold on a second now. Where am I at here? There we go. Right. So, holy cow. Come on up there. There we go. With the ship low, it spins. Oh my God. Yes. With the ship as low as it is in the pit, the twin sun's light is fully blocked. So Boba activates a small searchlight from the cockpit and he begins sweeping it from side to side. There is literally nothing but the open orifice of the Sarlacc with its teeth and tentacles to be seen. But then something at the bottom of the pit catches Boba's eye, and suddenly the Sarlacc's beak shoots forward, attempting to consume the ship. At the same time, a pair of tentacles grab the ship's wing housings and begin to pull Slave One down into its gaping maw. With the ship firmly in the Sarlacc's grip, Fennec shouts at Boba, "Shoot it!" But the angle from the guns and their close proximity to the sand make it impossible to even make a hit.
He's just making glass.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, right? Wrestling with the controls, Boba weaves the ship back and forth, trying to break the Sarlacc's hold, but it won't let go. Fennec tries to reach for an overhead switch, but the weight of her body against her seat harness make that impossible. Hitting the release on her harness, she drops cat-like onto the inside of the canopy. The Sarlacc strikes once again with its beak, unable to penetrate the glass. Now, standing on the canopy glass, Fennec is able to reach up and she toggles the switch. From the backside of Slave One, its mine dispenser opens and a familiar piece of ordnance rolls out and falls directly into the ravenous beak of the Sarlacc. Mm-hmm. As the beak retracts, Fennec lets out a derisive "fire in the hole" as the seismic charge detonates.
So good.
It's fantastic. I love that sound every time.
Only slightly muted from its underground.
I had the oddest thought to myself while I was watching this, like watching the Slave One not be able to pull out of its grip and going, how the frig strong is Lando Calrissian?
Oh, I know, to hold on.
Just to hold on to the stick, like with one arm, like, man, holy cow.
Maybe it wasn't that hungry. It already had a Weequay and a Boba.
It had a couple.
I'm not really hungry. I'm just holding on.
I just save this one for later.
Or maybe Lando charmed him and he was like touching him in a different way.
One thing about that, I mean, let's just talk about that for a second. The special edition of Return of the Jedi, when we roll up on the Sarlacc, the beak is actively like probing
out of
out.
the,
And it's not in this. Like, it's almost like a nod to like, hey, we remember what the Sarlacc used to look like too. And we get that more classic,
almost a sleeping Sarlacc,
the 1983 look of it. But the beak is still there.
One of the things I liked least about the special editions, actually,
the beak.
Yeah.
It
in
was
subsequent versions, it's been toned down and it looks more in place. But in theaters, the original special did not. It didn't look good. It didn't look good, George.
When you look at the beak thing, right? When you look at it, when you see, and I should have got a picture of it because I think it's hilarious. When you're looking at it, there's some of the renderings of this thing under the ground. It looks like a baby chicken with the baby bird. Feed me, with the way that it's drawn.
One of them sand squids.
When you see it, you can't unsee it. So there you go. Look up the Sarlacc, the whole thing, and just think baby chicken or like plucked chicken, because that's what it looks like. Yeah. Okay. The ground around the remains of the Katana heave and settle, burying the sail barge even further in the sand. As Boba pulls the ship back, maneuvering it upright, the limp remains of the Sarlacc's tentacles fall off. When Fennec drops back into her seat, Boba glances sideways at her, saying, "Next time, don't touch my buttons." Fennec says nothing, and she just stares back at him, annoyed, right? So that's the whole, he was rhetorically the whole next time.
Yeah.
Now he gets to lay it on her. Yeah. Next time, don't touch my buttons. Okay. With the Sarlacc now good and dead, Boba emerges from its viscera on a rope covered in its acidic juices while Fennec holds on to the other end. Boba remarks that there's nothing down there but junk. She pours water from a canteen onto him, telling him that it's not safe to go in there. She tells him that his armor had served its purpose by protecting him from the Sarlacc's acid, and what he really needs to find now is a bacta tank. All right, so we've already talked about the whole why does he have no memory of this? I think it's pretty safe to say that between the whole, it's been a while, he was nearly dead when he crawled out there, that it's not that far of a stretch that he really doesn't remember being knocked out.
Pure adrenaline to get out of that hole.
Being knocked out by Jawas. Yeah, just running on, like you say, pure survival instinct, right?
And it holds true with the theme that he was dead until he reached the Tusken camp, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Like thematically, he was dead.
Yeah, yes. Okay, so later that night, sitting around a small cooking fire, Fennec asks Boba if he was serious about forming his own house. He asks her, how many times have you been hired to do a job that was avoidable? If those employers had only thought about how many lives could have been saved and how much money could have been made. Fennec retorts that if that was to happen, then people like us would be out of work. Boba says he's tired of their kind dying because of the idiocy of others. Taking it further, he tells her we're smarter than them, and it's time we took our shot. Fennec questions, we? And Boba says, yes. I need brains and muscle, and you have both. Fennec says that the offer is tempting, but she prefers to remain an independent contractor, although she says that she will do jobs for him. But Boba counters by saying that he can offer her something that nobody else can, and that's loyalty. He says he'll cut her in on the success, and he will pledge his life to protect hers. I'm going to come back to it again. Is there something more going on here? Because that sounds way more than just a professional courtesy.
It's a serious commitment to make.
I look at the we've seen this in Star Wars before, the Wookiee life debt or the life debt. Mm-hmm. It was brought up in not used
multiple times.
I was going to say in the Phantom Menace, it wasn't used quite well when Qui-Gon says this Gungan has a life debt, but sure, I get it.
Yeah.
But really, is that what this is? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think it's about the living with the Tuskens. He's learned the value of life.
I think so too.
And it's just a way, it's the line, I can offer you loyalty. I can actually, and here's my guarantee. I'll put my Boba Fett stamp on it. That's almost him from the other life talking about, you know what I mean? I'll protect you to the death, but it's the loyalty line. It's an extension of that. It is the thing that no one else can offer, like an exclusive contract where, you know, like you have a say in the job, you have a say in the process, you have a say in the money, and that's not the everyday.
Is
you know,
this
for these types of characters?
Is this line potentially a reflection of the fact that he did see his father get murdered by somebody who got, like, that's the whole people who are get us killed?
Could be.
It happened to my father. It will happen to me.
And dozens and dozens of times. Like again, I encourage everybody to go read the War of the Bounty Hunters and the utter catastrophe that the Han Solo job turns out to be.
Yeah.
And the utter hell he goes through to recover the bounty, and it becomes about just not even the money. It becomes about he's got to save his own life and reputation,
right.
more than anything. And I think that's the stuff that he's sick of. I think the idea, like, clearly he's talking about being more loyal to the bounty hunter lifestyle, the culture, than, like, because he could seriously be talking about clones here.
Oh, that's entirely possible too,
right? Yeah. Like, you know, and in the broader sense, he's interestingly perched in two worlds like that, right?
Yeah.
So, and it could be foreshadowing, and I don't think it's ridiculous to think that we could have a romance here.
I don't think so either. The other thing that comes out of this, and I'm going to talk about it later over the dinner party, is like, and this is another one sort of in the fan community that comes up about how capable Fennec is, that she seems to be doing a lot more of the heavy lifting when it comes to the operations. And that could just be, you know, that is her role within the organization, but could they be setting her up for her own show?
Quite possibly.
I had said a couple of weeks ago,
she's got potential as a breakout character.
I'd said a couple of weeks ago, you know, they won't do it because Boba Fett's a cash cow, but bold storytelling choice. Is there the potential for this character to die at the end of the season? And if he did, wouldn't it be something for Fennec to just pick up the pieces and carry on?
That's interesting. I don't know if they're bold enough to do it. I don't think
they are.
No,
I just thought that would be, because they definitely are poising her to be more than just a master assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Absolutely. She's got enough backstory they could fill.
Oh, for sure.
You figure from the end of the Bad Batch to
now,
5 years post Jedi, that's a
27 years
that they could fill in with story of her.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the end of the book of Boba Fett either.
I don't think so either. I think there's more story to be had.
That's
a couple more chapters anyway.
Yeah.
Well, Fennec stares at him across the fire and she says that living with the Tuskens has made you weak. But Boba meets her gaze and he says, no, it has made me stronger. You can only get so far without a tribe. With the flash of light, Boba is back in the Bacta tank, and then the next dream immediately starts. But it's a short one as he relives killing Bib Fortuna and assuming the throne. Waking from his slumber, Boba exits the Bacta pod while one of his dressing droids brings him a robe. As he sits up on the edge of the pod, the droid congratulates him on finally becoming fully healed.
That's the line.
As Fennec walks in and retorts, what about the scars on the inside? I love the armor stand. Love that. Had to get a shot of that. It just looks so cool.
So reminiscent of Dryden Voss's Mandalorian armor stand from Solo. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they borrowed it. Love the missiles with the gold tips. That's a new thing. The gold tips.
Yeah.
And Tem is looking great there. I mean, all scars are gone and he's looking mightily greased up and ready to go.
Ready for war.
So
he does have a couple like leftover scars that they leave, like they might have been.
They're just so deep or something.
Very subtle stuff. But he does look a little grizzled. But there's a key thing there, and that's that line from the droid, fully healed. And this is what everybody's been sitting there waiting for.
We've been sort of speculating the whole show.
We've watched him wreck shop a few times, not fully healed. We watched him wreck shop on Tython, like he dismantled a couple.
Well, that's just it. When he went through those stormtroopers with nothing but a gaffy stick, right. And
now, like, look out! I'm serious. Look out! Now we got a fully healed Boba Fett going after a gang of pikes. It's on, man.
I said last week there was going to be some killing, and I mean, yes, it did happen, albeit from behind the control yoke of Slave One. But look at the look on the man's face
Yeah.
Like that was a man who was out for blood. And for everybody who's complaining that this isn't the Boba Fett I know, that character I don't think is fully laid to rest yet. I think we're going to get some more of that. And because there's a imminent war, it's coming. We're going to see some Boba ass kicking here pretty soon because we've only got, we're over the halfway point now. So we've only got a couple more. And the Filoni episode is coming. So that's going to be a good one. Okay, so now that we can say that he's fully healed, we can confirm, yes, the Sarlacc did have lasting effects on him. Remarking that those scars, the scars on the inside, take longer, Boba asks Fennec if there's been anything from the mayor's major domo. She, of course, remarks that he's singing like a Yuzum, but there's still no sign of the mayor. And of course, the Yuzum, that's one of the CGI characters added for the special edition of Return of the Jedi. That's Joe Yowza, who was an addition to the Max Rebo band when they redid the music, and it was a duet with Cy Snoodles. I still prefer the original song, but hey. Boba summons for his armor, but Fennec says, just relax. The mods are out combing the streets, and if the mayor's still in town, they'll find him. But Boba is still insistent that he makes an appearance in town. Fennec reminds him that war could break out at any time, and she asks him if that's a wise idea. Boba stares at her squarely, and he says, power hates a vacuum. Funny, I think we've said that too. Oh, I think I did something wrong. I think I've missed a slide. Did I? I did. I missed a whole slide on the whole Trandoshan thing. Anyway, at the sanctuary, a group of Trandoshans celebrate a winning hand at the card table. Black Chrysanthemum watches from his table just a few feet away. It's clear that he's been drinking, and that's not doing anything for his disdain for the reptilians. But it seems like the Trandoshans are on a winning streak, as it were, and that just sets him off. Lunging at one of the lizard men, he tosses him across the room, landing near the entryway just as Boba walks in. Now, Boba stands in the doorway and casually watches as Chrysanthemum pummels the entire Trandoshan party of 5. As the lizard men try to gain some footing, one of them boldly smashes a glass over the Wookiee's head, which gains his full attention, and Chrysanthemum turns, picking him up by both arms. Just then, Madame Garza appears, shouting at the Wookiee, I think you've made your point. It's enough to get Chrysanthemum's attention, and that's all she needs to launch into a litany of the Wookiee's gladiatorial achievements in an attempt to placate him.
She had my attention.
She had a lot of people's attention.
I'll say that.
Reminding him of his achievements, now she suggests that dismembering this poor, unfortunate Trandoshan is beneath him. Touching Chrysanthemum gently on the arm, she reminds him that his days in the arena have passed, and this is a more civilized place in more civilized times. She just became the Obi-Wan of our series.
Legacy line.
That's right. She continues adding, there. You've nothing to prove. You're a champion. Then, changing gears, Garza reminds Chrysanthemum that he has run up quite a bar tab. Now, there's a thing in this where she actually refers to him, she calls him Santo. S-A-N-T-O, Santo.
Yep.
Like it's some kind of nickname.
Yep.
Have we heard that anywhere before?
No, it's a take on, so Dr. Afra calls him Santy all the time.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes Big K or Black K or just K. So Afra throws a lot of different names at him. Santo is the first sort of deviation from Santy. So
I guess so.
So and it's just a Chewy thing, Santy, Chewy.
I guess so. Yeah.
Picked up a nickname visiting the place.
Santo.
Times, so.
It just, I guess that's the whole, because she says a lot more, and I mean, for me to get every line of dialogue just would have been too much. But she does talk about the first words from her. She's like, I remember when the people would come. So
he is like galaxy renowned, like
champion.
I know that you guys have just met him, and ostensibly I just met him in 2015 too. But he's already a higher tier. He's like, if Boba's here, he's like there.
Yeah,
he's already a higher tier of guy than Bosk or Dengar or IG-88, or he's the. If you can't get Boba, that's the guy you want.
That's you want to go to. Okay,
right? So he's galaxy renowned as well, if you will. So
Yeah,
makes sense that that's the speech.
Interesting. So she goes on to say, but if he were to put the customer down and let the room go back to their fun, she would wipe his debt from the bar. The Wookiee shoots Garza a sideways look and without warning tears an arm off the Trandoshan before dropping him to the floor. And I mean, there's a good wet sound and like the actor who pulls off the whale. I mean, it's not a Wilhelm by any means, but it's pretty convincing. Like, oh wow, that did not feel good. Yeah. On his way out of the bar, Chrysanthemum drops a handful of credits into one of the Twi'lek attendants' hands. Boba, who's been mildly curious throughout the whole thing, smirks at Garza and says, it was worth a shot.
Preferring to pay his tab than to like. So there's two things about that scene that's great. First of all, Wookiees don't like to lose, and what she did there was she beat him with logic.
Yeah.
That was his way of, I'm not about to lose this confrontation. So, and the other thing is, kids, if you're really worried about that Trandoshan canon, their limbs grow back. Their limbs grow back. Yeah.
It's like an iguana's tail. He'll get it
just
back.
Reasserts the whole Trandoshan hate thing.
Well, and I mean,
and there's that too. We could get into that. Yeah.
There's also the rip the ears off a Gundark, or Wookiees rip your arm off. I know that we got the behind the scenes thing with Chewie, but this is the first time we've had it like a real like part of the production. A Wookiee ripped somebody's arm off.
Rip somebody's arm off. Yeah. And right, like you say, Andy, Wookiees and Trandoshans are ancestral enemies.
They are, yeah. So. All right. Out on the street, Black Chrysanthemum walks ploddingly down the way, unaware that Boba has followed him. With a casual, "Hey, mate," the former gladiator turns around to face the challenge. But what comes next is probably very unexpected for him, and Boba says, "Looks like you could use a job." Facebook user coming in here with a great throwback to the original. Yes, it totally is a great throwback. And we do love all the legacy stuff that comes up in this. As we've said many times before, rhyming stanzas or cyclical nature of Star Wars, whether it's lines of dialogue that just get recycled, but in
or arms laying on the floor.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, it did have that sort of like the wet noodly, the same sort of look as like when Ben cut off Ponda Baba's arm.
And in the extreme foreground too, the way it was the most prominent sort of thing in the shot. Yeah, definitely.
I did like that. Sometime later, back at the palace, Boba and Fennec now host a dinner party. Down in the throne room, in front of the plinth that Jabba once sat upon, sits the throne. Besides the guests and attendants, Black Chrysanthemum now stands guard. In attendance are the heads of the Aqualish, Trandoshan, and Klatooinian houses, all of whom Fennec point out used to be captains under Jabba. She adds that when Bib Fortuna took over, they all chose to leave the family, that Bib was an unworthy leader with no right to the throne. And even though each of them tried to take over in their own way, they were all thwarted by Bib's guile and treachery, but only Boba Fett was the man to remove him. Fennec reminds them that they all accrued wealth under Jabba, and that if they would listen to Boba, they could do so once again. Fennec takes her seat next to Boba, and then he begins to speak. "I may sit on that throne, but I have no designs on any of your territories." Boba asks for no tribute or quarter, and he expects to give none either. But he does have a proposal for the gathered crime bosses. Boba then lays out what they already know, that the Pike Syndicate has begun moving troops into Mos Espa. They have absorbed Tatooine into their spice operation and are slowly draining the planet of its wealth, a drain that they will surely all experience. Doc Strassi interrupts by saying that his family makes a lot of credits from the sale of spice. Then the Klatooinian Dawn, who, by the way, this week is also played by Phil Lamar. Phil Lamar, who played the Pike Syndicate leader last week. The Klatooinian head interrupts when he says, "Why do you deserve to be daimyo? What prevents us all from killing you and taking what we want?" As the dinner guests look to Boba for his answer, a loud roar erupts from beneath the floor, and everyone leaps from the table. Beneath the table, the Rancor presses its claws through the ornate floor grate. Startled by the Rancor, the LEP droid, now in the service of Boba, scurries off. And Boba calms the Rancor by passing it some meat on a long bone and then asks for everyone to please sit. All the crime bosses look at each other nervously, but they do take their seats as Boba continues where he left off. Why speak of conflict when corporation can make us all rich? And with 8D8 translating, Garfalaquox, the head of the Aqualish family, is the first to ask, what is it that Boba proposes? So Boba lays it all out for them in plain terms. He wants all the families to form an alliance to vanquish the Pikes from Tatooine. But the Klatooinian Dawn objects, saying that the Pikes have only challenged Boba's territory, so why should they risk their lives for him? And Doc Strassi agrees with him. With the realization that things are not going to go the way that he had hoped, Boba stands up and he proclaims that he will fight the Pikes by himself and will make the streets safe again so that everyone in the room can profit. All he asks in return is that if they are approached by the Pikes, that the families remain neutral. Each family confers amongst themselves for a moment, and one by one, they all agree. And then there's this moment where, I talked about this earlier, but Fennec, she looks squarely at Garfalaquox, the Aqualish guy, and she nods like they share a moment, the two of them, that she doesn't share with any of the other Dons. So is there something going on there? Like, did I miss something?
Just be something we haven't hit on yet.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, she did organize the meeting. I mean, I get that sense that she does the like, hey, everybody come and talk to Boba.
Well,
and also she's sitting right next to him.
That's true.
But it's just more intimate kind of thing. And she does sort of speak Aqualish a little because she semi-translates in the first episode.
Yeah.
And they of all the three heads, they seem the most like innocuous anyway.
Yeah, they were the most. I get the feeling like from that whole sequence that if Strassi and the Klatooinian guy, if they hadn't have objected, because he's the one to say like, what do you propose? Like he wants to hear him out. Right. I think if he was to go first, he would have been, I'm all in. What do you want? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Because the other
it's quite possible.
No, I think that kind of
puts him in a position where he has to say no as well.
And maybe Fennec knew that, and that's why she went to him. Like, listen, if this doesn't play out, please, just put up your own neutrality. Because if you say that you're going to be neutral, then maybe the other two will follow suit. Something like that. But I think it does sort of play into what you say. Like, essentially, she is Boba's major domo. So, like, the day-to-day operation thing, that would kind of be her job.
Yeah, with more oomph.
She's the one out there managing, like, relax. The mods are out there. They're doing their thing. Like, don't worry about it.
On paper, it doesn't, like, when we watch the old school Star Wars stuff, it doesn't really hit the casual fan. But on paper, with Black Chrysanthemum and Fennec Shand as his left and right lieutenants, he's just made a crazy power move in the galaxy. This is huge, actually.
Well, and that's about to change, whether it's for the better or for the worse. It's certainly going to be more robust.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, Fennec, we know that when we first met her before Bad Batch, she was on Tatooine.
That's right. Yeah,
and she was taking jobs there. So who's to say that she wasn't?
Already
in contact with that particular branch?
Well, was she taking jobs on Tatooine because there was a guild puck for her, and the Bounty Hunter Guild was after her? So who knows? She's definitely on both sides of the puck, as it were. Taking them and
it's funny because she references the Night Wind being too expensive, but she's referenced in the comic book. She's never shown, but she's referenced bounty hunter Berlet Valance is introduced to Cassu Leech, who we met briefly in Force Awakens, and he's a pit fighter. He's a young up and coming bounty hunter / pit fighter, and he's doing very well. And basically, Valance is, upon being introduced, is like, why should I deal with this guy?
Right.
And you just think Fennec Shan, but cheaper is what he's described as. So that's kind of the name drop. So she's got some renown to her as well.
Right. That's cool. Okay. With the dinner party having been concluded, Boba and Fennec stand on the balcony of his chambers and watch as the crime families leave. Fennec asks if he trusts them, and Boba answers by saying that he does trust them to work in their own self-interests. adding that his deal is a lot better than what the syndicate would offer them. He calls the crime families foolish, but not stupid enough to see that the Pikes would eventually take over the entire planet, and that either way, they must prepare for war. As the speeders pull away, Fennec asks Boba how much treasure is still in reserve. Boba answers plainly enough that he's got enough credits, but it's muscle that he needs. And with a shrewd look, Fennec tells him that credits can buy muscle if you know where to look. And then I had that scream at my TV like a sports fan moment when we got this.
Mm-hmm. And it morphs back into the Boba Fett theme.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the whole Mando theme going off there, I'm like, yes. So there's that going for us. And then, by the way, it's cut to black in the episode.
Cut to black.
Cut to black, and it's over. But talk about leaving on a high note. It is the Mandalorian theme. So I mean, the obvious one is Din Djarin is coming, but
is he going to be coming alone?
It does open the gateway to other characters from that show. So as you say, is he coming alone, or who's he bringing?
Or is Cara Dune going to make a miraculous return?
Well, all that talk about, there may be some resolution between the company and her. I don't know if that's happened or not. Some of these companies are better at keeping secrets than others.
What was this film before that happened?
Well, there's that as well.
Yeah, there's a window there.
I don't think we're going to get the Grief Karga. I mean, now that he's doing the Lando, he's gone legit.
He's doing his own thing with that guild.
Yeah. He's running Navarro. Legitimately, he wants it to be a trade outpost.
Yeah, I also don't think that you're going to overpower the episode with like 5 Spider-Man villains.
Right.
I think what you're going to get is you're probably going to get Bo-Katan, and you might get Cosca Reeves and maybe the other dude who who didn't get named. You're probably going to get that cadre
dude.
and Din Djarin, and you might get Migs Mayfield, and you might get that cool droid he was with too. Like Q90.
Zero, yeah, that's right.
But I don't think you're going to swell the ranks with like my first instinct was, we'll have all these Mandalorians fighting Pikes, but what we know of Pikes, they're like slimy drug dealers. They're not we haven't seen anybody go toe to toe for the Pikes. So all we have seen is that the Pikes need to hire thug bikers to do their dirty work.
We got a comment coming in here just on that subject about what about the Smith? And of course, I think that's a reference to the armorer character who is still out there somewhere. Whether she's taken to finding a new covert, or
right, and that's the idea that they do return to their coverts. It all depends on the style of writing, I think, and how much time has passed for Din Djarin, and when we see him, the question for all of us is he going to be wielding the Darksaber, and are we going to have to retroactively explain some of? Yes, yes, it is the way. Are we going to have to retroactively explain some of what we've just seen vis-a-vis Mandalorian season 3
or future?
I know that like with 3 episodes left and the structure, everybody thought the structure was a little weird. Why 7 episodes? But it makes sense that the first 3 were the origin story. That the middle episode, which is this one, is the middle episode, is the power and responsibility episode. It answers all the questions everybody had about not liking the character. It's all laid out for you right now. There's nothing not to like anymore. This is he's explained that I've changed. Right. He's explained that, then I think that the next 3 is literally the 3-act play that all the trilogies are. And we're going to have a very cool and optimistic opening act. I think we're going to have a really dark, tragic second act, and I think you're going to see us win the race in the third
the
one.
war, and kick the Pikes out of Mos Espa.
Right. So expect the end of the Filoni episode to have some weight to it. The middle act,
very much so. I still hold a candle for appearances by other legacy characters. So like the bounty hunters from Empire. I think this is the perfect way to get them in and to have that fan service moment that everybody's been sort of clamoring for. We want more bounty hunters.
So there is that,
Sure.
and that rather than garnering the will of the Mandalorian people, it's more likely that Din Djarin brings a cadre of friggin' bounty hunters with him,
or even Fennec. I mean, we got the Mandalorian cue from the music, but I mean, the dialogue is we can buy muscle, and
that's going to be more than one person.
That's indicative of we're buying bounty hunters, you know.
Right.
And there you go. Bring anybody who's everybody, and don't forget, there's still that sort of, is Cad Bane going to show up? Is Cad Bane still alive?
I would jump up and down through the ceiling for Forlom.
Yeah.
So, like, if they ever gave me Bosk, I would go crazy nuts. Crazy nuts. Bosk, if you guys aren't familiar with, you guys are definitely, but if the fans out there aren't familiar with the Clone Wars, like, Bosk raised him. Bosk,
they have a relationship.
They have a relationship beyond just the kind of surface stuff that you get to see.
So the question, Boba versus Bosk, that's probably unlikely because of the relationship they had in prison, where Bosk really kind of looked out for him in prison.
Dengar is actually the wild card out of all those guys that he's on the deck with. In Empire, Dengar is the one that he has butts heads with the most. I got a comic book here where it's a real cool cover of Dengar fighting Chewie on the cover. I'm not going to reach for it, but
it's too bad that Clint Eastwood was sold. He'd be the perfect live action Cad Bane. You know what, though? Clint could be out there doing, he could still voice a character like that, and I would definitely accept that.
Yeah, body double him in, and
or
depending on the life cycle of the clones. You want to hire some muscle, why don't you call Sid?
Well, there you go. I mean, you have a whole mercenary squad of clones. I mean, that is effectively what they became.
Yeah.
Making their way in the galaxy post Clone Wars, trying to figure out what the new world's going to look like.
There is another thing that could happen here, and I mean, this is a big stretch, but perhaps, if when pressed into service, Din Djarin also has to, look for help. He's not exactly, he's the Bruce Willis of the characters we've seen wearing this armor. He just kind of scrapes by. And it's possible that he reaches out to the Jedi, and therefore Ahsoka Tano might pop up in some capacity. Who knows?
Yeah. I think, just one more point on the bounty hunter thing. And this gives you your Grief Karga moment. Grief Karga being the guild contact for the bounty hunters guild. If Fennec basically goes to Din Djarin and she needs him, and who do you got, then Din can go to Grief Karga and say, who do you got? And then that just opens the door to, a yard's arm list of people that we could potentially bring back in.
See, you would need mercenaries, and the reason is because if you're going to go to war with one of the main sort of groups of the criminal empire, you're burning bridges.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you're probably not going to be able to hire a mercenary force, but you're probably going to be able to hire a few people to train up. You might see some organized Tuscans brought into the fold here.
That's it. So, I mean, I had this sort of whole thing. I mean, you can't talk about Star Wars without acknowledging the Frank Herbert connection. And I mean, the whole Dune thing, Spice, obviously. The Sand People really are, in some ways, an analogy for the Fremen, for desert power. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, given Boba's connection, could Boba could it be Boba is the Jake Sully of Tatooine and unites the Tusken tribes?
It's possible.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
he walks in, he knows their ways.
That's the whole idea. That's a true daimyo. That's a true daimyo.
There you go. Unite the people.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely an interesting thought going forward. As you say, we've got 3 episodes left. It's going to be a wild ride, I think, from here on to the end. And always, we will be there to cover every aspect of it as we can, even the ones that we miss.
Well, here's one.
Yeah.
I know we want Bosk, we want the old ones, but in the interest of introducing another new one,
sure,
we might get a grown-up Omega. Sporting some 99 armor.
I don't want to discount that idea. I just think that she's so important of a character that, I mean, clearly the long plan is here for Star Wars television, and man, this whole there may be some rethinking about that and the way they do this, because if one thing has been, and I mean, we liked it. So, I mean, I'm not saying that this is a criticism for the show, because I liked it, but it is a criticism that the dual storytelling has been controversial. Like, I mean, there's a camp of people that say you could have told all the Tusken thing continuously and it would have been fine. And you could have told all of the present Mandoverse stuff and it would have been fine. Do they want to keep going with that bounce back and forth formula?
I think
I don't know,
because if
Maybe-
Bad Batch is getting a season 2,
I would say for the duration of this show, we definitely might bounce back and forth.
Yeah,
a little.
I agree with that. Yeah,
but at the same time, like what you say, Andy, there you are. With them already having greenlit Bad Batch scene 2, I don't think you're going to club Omega over the head yet. I don't think they'll spread her too thin.
Training. Din also speaks Tusken, so that could set up a training montage.
Yeah, fantastic.
Montage again.
That's fantastic.
That's fantastic. It is.
Yeah.
Totally.
A lot of people, like Lauren's, she's not really into the Bad Batch. She watched it with me, and I over-examined everything we watch, and she tried to love it with me, but it's the one Star Wars property.
Not rub on her. Oh, okay.
She's the biggest Rebels fan. She's the biggest Clone Wars fan. And she just felt it was kind of like, she felt like it talked down to her, and she felt it was more aimed at kids than the other stuff. And I asked her, she never watched Resistance, and she hadn't. So,
oh boy,
so that's my one that I can't get through. So I'm sure that there are levels for people, and maybe there are levels where people can get through Boba Fett. I think they're mental, but yeah.
Well, that's okay. But you know how it is.
Give it a couple more episodes, then come back.
Exactly.
It's like,
I didn't like WandaVision after the first episode.
Well, and of course that was one of the big things that came up was, it is so divergent from what we've seen before that you may not like the way that they're telling the story. But, I'm just excited that we're still here. It's 2022. We're getting a whole host of new things coming. I mean, we're not even through this, and I'm already I'm looking down the road at what's coming next, which we think it's the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah.
This week, Star Wars news. The last couple days, Mary Elizabeth Winstead cast in a Star Wars role. She is coming to Ahsoka
next to Dawson.
Yes. Are we going to speculate on who she's going to play? Because it's an undisclosed character.
Harrison Dula.
So I've seen three front running characters. One, Hera is one of them.
Sabine Wren.
Sorry, what's that?
Sabine Wren.
That's the other one, and one more.
I don't know.
This one,
Natalie Bordizzo has already been cast as Sabine Wren.
Okay.
I did not know that. The other character that I did hear about was Barriss Offee.
Oh, possibly. Yeah, man, that's a good pick. Yeah. No, Sabine Wren's already been cast. Australian, Asian Australian actress Natalie Bordizzo. Sorry, check it out. Now she's already been cast to play Sabine Wren. It happened.
Okay.
The other thing is finally, and I know you guys aren't as excited about this as I am, but finally, Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
Oh yes,
has a release date, August 5th, or April 5th. Sorry, this spring. Finally, we're getting it. The trailer, the gameplay trailer. They just like a 4 or 5 minute game trailer.
Oh, that's great.
Looks amazing.
Yeah.
And then the company came out, and there's a whole bunch of people saying like. It was basically made in slave conditions, and don't buy our game because it was horrible. Like the crunch culture they call it. We used to call it working hard, but now they call it crunch culture. But so there's already a little negative kind of press behind the game by the people who made the game.
Right.
I hope it turns out to be nothing. It's probably not nothing, but I hope these people get compensated for what they worked for, and I really hope the best for the creators. Without the creators, we can't have all the fun that we have with the game.
That's right. Yeah.
But I am so over the moon stoked for this friggin' game. I can't wait.
Well, I mean, the success that Star Wars is enjoying right now, I mean, it's safe to say
I like those odds
that we're going to get a whole lot more new content in weeks, years to come. So, like I say, I keep professing us not to be a Star Wars show, but every time something Star Wars comes up, it just seems to generate the most excitement. I'm not gonna lie, it's one of the biggest influences on my life. So,
it's good stuff. I mean, like,
it is.
I know that it's divisive and stuff, and the blah 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 those guys, but if it wasn't really good stuff, we wouldn't be here. We'd be we'd be waiting until Moon Knight came out, I guess.
Exactly.
But so, it's a pleasure to be this big a fan and be served up this big a smorgasbord this far on in my life, because I never thought after 1983 at 13 I was like, okay, well, Robotech and maybe girls. And I never thought,
exactly.
I didn't think I'd be here at 50 doing this and enjoying it so much. Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, as I say, we are here. We got 3 more to go. We've got Obi-Wan coming later on. We got a whole host of other things.
Andor.
Everything. Yes. And I, for one, if I'm the only one sitting here in the room doing Andor, so be it. But I will damn well be here because I love that character.
Oh, man.
I can't wait to see what they do with him. But that's the enthusiasm I have going forward for everything coming down the pipe here at us here at Fandom Power. Once again, I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody who has been following us along from the beginning. And if you haven't, go check out some of our other review series. If you're not up to date on the Clone Wars, we did a really cool deep dive on the last 4 episodes of season 7. And that's really cool because that's the one that crosses over directly with Revenge of the Sith. We, of course, covered season 2 of The Mandalorian the same way that we've been doing this. And we just did season 1 of The Bad Batch. So there's lots of Star Wars content over on our YouTube channel on Sockcast Productions for you to catch up on, as well as all the other things that we like to talk about. And there'll be more yet to come. So until next week, guys, for Fandom Power, I'm Wes.
I'm Andy.
I'm Hank.
And we'll see you next time, guys. Bye for now.